Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Oops, I forgot forgot that part. All right.
So, how are you tonight, Mike?
Hold on a second. All right, there we go. All right, just realized I forgot to totally turn my TV all the way down there. Yeah. So, anyways, I'm fine. Pretty much have had yesterday. Was kind of my off day. Didn't even set up for the week until pretty late in the day. Woke up a
Yeah,
little bit later than I usually intend to. Didn't wasn't really starting to get up and around till like about 10 or 11 o'clock. So that
yeah,
and for me that's kind of on the late end. But
yeah. I know what you mean. Although I didn't wake up late today, but I know what it is like waking up late. Lately,
yeah,
I've been up on time or early.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
it's kind of funny because this past week I was getting well, part of it was because like one of the things I've been doing like on Sundays here after we get off the air and some of that. I'll watch on Tubi. I'll watch some of the episodes of the 1960s Dark Shadow series, the Gothic
ah,
soap opera from then. Um,
cool.
and but this week I decided to watch some of it during the week, and that was getting me to bed later than usual, and therefore like really kind of throwing me off a bit here. So, anyways,
Yeah,
while we're talking and waiting to see if anybody else shows up, of course, a reminder to everybody, of course, if you haven't already, if you can like and share the stream, see if we get some more friendly people in here to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and we'll try to answer the questions to the best of our ability. Um, as I said, we're just
my God.
waiting for more people to show up. So,
Uh,
yeah. So, as I was just saying, though, of course, and as I was, and I don't know if I said this on air with anybody or not yet, but I was just talking to Rick before the show here, just before the show, on Me TV here in the States. Next couple weekends, they're going to have some Charlie Brown movies on. Today it was
cool.
a boy named Charlie Brown from 3 to 5, Pacific time. That's 6 to 8 Eastern, and then next week Snoopy Come Home as part of their A Very Merry Me um,
Snoopy
present.
come home.
Snoopy Come Home will be next week.
Ah,
This week is a boy named Charlie Brown. Boy named Charlie Brown, of course, a Bill Melendez production, based on the Charles Schultz comic
yeah.
strips. You know,
You know what I think I'd like to see? I'd like to see Snoopy meets Scooby.
Snoopy meets Scooby. That would be quite interesting. You know, yeah, maybe have some kind of big dog picnic where you have Snoopy, Scooby, Pluto. Uh, maybe even throw in Barnyard Dog from Warner Brothers and Spike from MGM while you're at it.
Yeah. Well, I just think like they're similar, but they're not. They both do sort of the dress up, and well, although Snoopy
Scooby's
doesn't
more
play.
cowardly. Snoopy doesn't speak. Okay. Um,
Yeah,
but,
Snoopy doesn't back down for much, if any. Well, much. He does back down for a little bit. Um,
mhm,
but it would be neat to see them meet up, somehow, some way.
mhm.
Snoopy and Charlie Brown meet Shaggy and Scooby.
Yeah, wouldn't that be something? Snoopy and Charlie Brown meeting up with Scooby and Shaggy. That would be.
maybe Charlie Brown and I mean maybe Scooby and Shaggy come through wherever the Peanut characters live in the Mystery Machine.
Yeah.
I guess you could throw Scrappy in there at that point too.
Yeah. Well, one of the other things too, as I was reading through the notes on it earlier today, so a boy named Charlie Brown. That was the last time that Peter Robbins had provided the voice of Charlie Brown, and so he had basically been providing, and at that point he was 13, so he was like, and I was just looking this up earlier today too. The actors who were providing the voices for Charlie Brown in the 60s for the
Yeah,
Charlie Brown characters, Charlie, Lucy, Snyder, all of them. From what I understand, they were all child actors. They were all so whereas today you usually would see adult. Usually we talked about this a few weeks ago, of course. Particularly with preview. Now, granted, these weren't preview. These were more like middle school, maybe pubescent, kids. Not saying not they're not teenagers. It would have been more like late elementary, early middle school, probably,
yeah,
or kids here. But they actually, from what I was seeing, they actually legitimately brought in child actors to provide the voices for Charlie Brown and his cast of characters.
yeah. Which is a little unusual. More times than not, I think for whatchamacallit, voice acting, they do get an adult to do a kid's voice, which sort of makes no sense.
Well, yeah, and we talked about this, as I said, a few weeks ago, where I was mentioning, there are a few voice actresses out there who mainly made a career of providing the voices of prepubescent, kids, prepubescent
Yeah,
boys, Mona Marshall, Brian Sadal, um, you know, um, I think even going back further in time, I think June Foray may have even done it a little bit as well.
yeah,
Some of them have made their careers on it. Others have kind of delved into it, here and there. So, actually, awesome. You could argue like Debbie Derry, who, of course, provided the voices of both Zatch Bell and the English dub of Zatch Bell and Jimmy Neutron. You
yeah,
um, Miley Flanagan, even though
yeah,
Naruto's based, Miley Flanagan, who provided the English voice for Naruto throughout the series, um, one of the few ones where she actually maintained the role throughout well into his adulthood. You know, but Nancy Cartwright, another one who, of
yeah,
course, who did the voice of Bart Simpson. You know, um,
yeah. Probably all the ones for The Simpsons, actually. All the kids are probably all done by adults.
no. Lisa Simpson's voiced by Yardley Smith. She's a woman.
She's a what?
Woman. Yardley.
Yeah,
Well, Yardley. Okay, yeah. Um.
yeah. Well, that would be an adult. I just said
Oh yeah.
most likely all
Okay.
the ones in done by The
Well,
Simpsons are probably done by
I
adults.
was kind of confusing myself. I was just thinking of the prepubescent boys. I guess was
Yeah,
where I was on. So, ah, let's see. We're still just under 10 minutes in.
yeah. We're
Just
coming up at the 10-minute mark.
yeah. I just trying to wait and see if metal and or um.
Timothy or somebody will make an appearance. I'm sure
Right.
Metal will at some point, unless he's got something going on.
Yeah.
It's just a question of when for Metal.
Yeah. Well, it's like I don't want to. the thing is, obviously, it would be nice if I get everybody to come on right at the beginning of the show like you, or just before the show like you. But I know people are. I know like Metal usually is eating around this time, maybe tending to his dog and all that. So,
Yeah,
um,
well, I don't have much happening at 8 o'clock at night, so at least at the moment,
okay.
I don't know
Well,
what will be
I know you.
happening.
I know you've been sending out resumes too. How's that been going for you?
Well, sending them out is easy part. I'm getting, I'd say, a few out a day. Usually, there's the odd time where it's one or none, but usually I'd say it's a minimum of two, probably more like a minimum of three. But I've got no callbacks.
Kovac.
Callbacks, nobody's called
Oh, you
me.
haven't got any callback. So, yeah, yeah, and what I was noticing this week again, but I guess it's kind of the thing around holiday time too, where things do start to slow down the news cycle in terms of like comics, anime, and all that. Because now we're in the middle of the fall season for the anime release season. Um,
Yeah.
so, hmm. So, ah. And of course, I was hoping Metal would have got in here sooner rather than
Yeah.
here, only
No.
because because one of the things I think we'll focus on, is like Friday, and also get into like what I was, the comparison stuff as
Yeah.
well.
If I,
Hearing him.
but yeah, most likely if I don't get any callbacks or a job by Christmas, we'll say, or just before Christmas, I'm
Mhm.
thinking in January of going out to Vancouver for about a month and a week or so.
Going
So
out
I'll
there
be
for what? For a convention or just to hang out?
well more. I won't say convention, but I won't say exactly to hang out. Hopefully, try and look for a job out there. You know,
Hmm.
if like if I get a job, I'll stay that out there. But if I
Well,
don't get a job,
traveling and stuff like that does take some money, though.
yeah, well, I've got a little bit of money. The flight is only going to cost like somewhere between 60 and $80. So that's fairly
Wow,
cheap.
that is quite. Is it is it because it's a time of the year where there isn't a lot of travel, or actually no, there
Probably
would be more.
no. Well,
Actually,
like
there would be more travel because
no.
well, you
When I
said
would be,
it.
yeah,
Oh,
I'd be flying. Like in like 21st or 24th of January. So
oh,
and then I'd probably stay till the end of February, and and again, to fly back, it's about the same price or less.
yeah. Hmm.
So it's just staying there for the month and a half. That's the costly portion, and eating, of course, and
Hmm.
getting around while I'm out there.
Mhm.
But
Right.
it's a thought, and I've been wanting to go west for years. I felt sort of a calling, so
Huh. Well, yeah, and I know for you, like trying to connect with the church, um, connecting with a church out there too would probably be a big thing too.
yeah. If I end up going a month without church, that's fine, But I'm sure I'll find a church to go to for the month that I'm out there.
Just kind of send a message to Tim, see if he's gonna join us tonight. And I
Yeah.
haven't seen any sign of metal even being on right now. Oh yeah, I checked over there, and I know like Grant RJ hasn't been on in a while, but apparently he's doing something tonight on his channel. Well, and in this case, he's not hosting a show per se, but one of the other guys that does shows through him is doing one show. He's like doing that. Um, but
Well,
anyways,
it's quarter after 8, so
yeah. I think I guess we'll just kind of get started with what I was. So, well, I mean, there's only problem is there's not really anybody in here, so I don't know. Um,
yeah. Well, we gotta work as if there's people listening or whatever, and do our best. Yes, we don't get a lot of chat interaction at the moment, but it'll be hopefully a little bit of back and forth between you and me, and then hopefully at some point somebody will come in.
Yeah, and then there's always a chance that somebody will come and watch the replay and to get the information then. All right,
Yeah.
well, as you know, Rick, we read or we got through half of a story.
I don't
So
even think we got through half because you said that was 37 pages, and we got like what, 15 or 16,
yeah,
maybe
so
18.
yeah, just under half basically. Yeah, but
Yeah.
um,
Well, maybe we got just no, yeah, because 15 would have been half at 30, and then
well, 37. Okay, half for 37 would be like 18 and a half technically, or
yeah,
19, but and just as a reminder, because I think we do have some people really lurking. Um, First off, if you haven't already, if you can like and share the screen, see if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage. I'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here we talk about grabs your attention, feel free to comment and/or ask questions. We'll try to answer the questions to the best of our ability. With that being said, as we were just talking about now, so Rick, so we got through about maybe just under half of a story, a character
yeah.
called Doctor Strange, and this is not.
Marvel's
Funny,
Doctor
this is not
Strange.
Marvel's Doctor Strange. This is not Doctor Stephen Strange. This is not Professor Hugo Strange. This is a different Doctor Strange. Doctor um, Thomas Hugo Strange from Thrilling Comics Volume 1, Issue 1 from Standard Comics. Um, uh,
Yes.
from what we did read, Rick, you want to kind of tell everybody, at least give
Yeah. It was,
people an idea what the story is about, what your impressions of the story were?
well, it was definitely a little weird. You sort of start in the middle of a story, and then you get some origin in there. It's just they seem to this story seemed to be all over the place in a lot of ways, and
Hmm.
and as usual for that time, it had a lot of things that were a little hard to suspend reality for.
Well, and the term, of course, we use for that are I was going to let you try to say it, but I guess I'll say it if you don't want to say it. Leaps of logic.
Yeah, yeah. I just wasn't sure what you're going to go with. I thought there was another term sometimes we use too, or
Yeah.
a more.
Well, yeah, leaps of logic is what I was getting at because
Yeah,
in terms of the storytelling, of course, um,
no.
you know, um,
But it had one of the typical tropes, really. Although at the time I did complain about. Complain might be over um, estimation or
overstatement.
whatever. Yeah, overstatement of going up. When a fire. Lots of stories have. Oh, there's a fire here. Let's go up. That
Oh
makes
yeah,
no
that
sense.
one scene in the story where he actually went up and jumped off the roof rather than just running
Yeah,
straight out, get out of
it's
the
like
fire.
going up. In my opinion, never makes sense. Yes, you don't really want to go into the heart of the fire, but you'd be better to quickly try and run through, battle through, for lack of a better way of saying it, through a little bit of fire than get caught on the roof. Although they probably say do that because hopefully the fire nowadays you have the fire department that would come and set up this big bag that you can jump on.
Mm-hmm.
But
as we know,
sick.
this guy apparently did have some kind of superhuman strength to where he could leap off of make a a 15, 20-foot leap off a roof and not apparently get hurt.
Yeah, and that's a thing, but the guy's surprised when the woman's dress catches fire. You're in a fire. Jeez.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah. Oh, hold on. Yeah.
Can I stick in my 2 cents?
I guess so.
Fire burns uphill.
Meaning,
if you go up, you're in trouble.
Yeah, that's sort of what I was implying.
Yeah, I figured that.
I'm not sure whether you heard my cousin. She was saying fire burns uphill. In other words,
yeah. Well, I mean, of course, we're just kind of reviewing what we read on Friday there, and
yes. I can sort of get in a thing where you're in like a burning building going up, because then the fire department's going to come set up a big bag for you to jump off into. But like if you're back then they didn't really have that sort of technology, I don't believe, and obviously this guy's out in the middle of nowhere. So the chances of the fire department coming and doing that, even if they did have that technology, I don't believe they did.
Well, that quote unquote technology that I think they've always had the idea of having some kind of like net or trampoline or something for people to jump out onto. I think that's not like something that's too like space age.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not saying it's really all that thing, but I guess it has gotten a little bit more sophisticated and more safer over the years. They've went from, like you said, a trampoline or some sort of net that they have to somehow set up to, this big giant airbag that they can set up in probably like about, 5 minutes, if that, and it's a lot safer for people to jump onto the, the giant airbag than, 4 guys trying to hold a net. If you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, I don't know. That stuff always gets me when somebody goes up in a fire. It's like...
Yeah, it's kind of funny. The next morning, on Saturday morning, I was watching Popeye and Pals, recorded that and was watching Popeye and Pals, and one of the episodes they had was where Bluto and Popeye were eating firemen trying to save olive oil cow. And if you watch that one, that would like be another one where you see like a lot of leaked logic there, because it's like, everything they did, her house ended up basically being almost completely destroyed. It's like they were fighting each other more than like at one point Bluto had Popeye hung with the water, spraying water from a hose, and the water going off like this. In essence, it's kind of hanging Popeye.
Yeah.
So but whether they be in comics or in cartoons, there were was a lot of leaks in logic there, or just But then I think that's part of the essence of escapism too, right?
Yeah. Well, and like I said, it's some of this stuff is just for the things that it is. But the other about this story that got me is that it was 37 pages. Back then that was a
I'd basically like a feature-length book right there.
Yeah, it was very. It was even heard of for like a 20-page little. You had 10 or 15, I think,
Well,
at
oh
most.
yeah, I mean, I know like the Speed Gibson books, or not Speed Gibson, but Shock Gibson and Speed Comics. Those ones were also like 20 plus. Those were 20 plus pages.
Oh wow.
So some of those early stories. So some of them did have like this. Usually, most books, the lead and secondary featured were like 12 to 13 pages. Everything else was usually single digits, anywhere from like 4 to 8 pages, depending upon what type of story it was. And then when
Yeah.
you had some of the more anthology-like books, like in Dell and stuff like that, most of the stories were between 4 and 8 pages because they were a mix of shorter adventure stories with humor stories thrown in there.
Yeah.
Uh,
So this was like like a way big feature story that I'd say was unheard of. Heck, comic books today are only about 20, 22 pages. Usually, you might have the odd one that'll have a 24-page feature story. This thing was almost like 2 issues put in one, if you will, for today.
yeah. Well, I mean, and again, I think I would have had a much easier time getting through at least that one story, if
Yeah.
it weren't
Oh,
for the fact that the scan was so bad.
yeah.
I mean, you
Or
could probably tell I was struggling to read that thing.
yeah. This would have been a double. Well, this was issue one, wasn't it? Or what
Yeah.
issue? So it's almost like the double-sized first issues that you used to get in comics.
Well,
Or
I don't think
the
they were doing. I don't think they were doing that yet, though. I mean, this was
no,
still
no,
19.
no. I know they're doing that yet, but I'm saying it's like when 10, 15 years ago, when we, or maybe even today, when you get that double-sized first issue, or like a specialty one like 25 or whatever, where you get a double sized special issue. That's what this thing is almost like.
Mm-hmm.
This story, anyways. Which, and at the time, it's pretty much unheard of. But it's interesting that it is in a first issue that this happens. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
it's where somebody got the idea later on for that double sized first issue. Which would be that length of story and maybe a little bit longer. And then, of course, we went over some statistics from 1938 to
Yeah,
1950
and I was just about to get to that.
because I think we've exhausted everything that we can on
Yeah,
that
I think
story.
about that. I mean,
Yeah, because we didn't. Unfortunately, we did not finish it.
right.
In some ways, I would like to go back and finish it somehow. You know, either read it off air and then edit, or just make a special day to finish it or whatever. Even if we did it on my
Well,
channel, I'd like it.
I mean, theoretically, if nothing else, I guess what we could do is we could do a special reading tonight and just try to. But the thing is, I don't like doing that. I don't like just if I have to start, I don't like to just start right in the middle and then because then it doesn't then the story's not going to make sense for people.
Yeah, well, you let people know at the beginning. Well, I'm not suggesting we read it tonight because it's spur of the moment, if you will, and it's going to take a while to finish. I'm saying maybe
Yeah, I'm not going to probably go back to it. We'll just move.
I was thinking some Saturday you start up and you say this is the continuation of this story that we didn't finish. You let people know in advance. So you want to hear it first. Go watch this one. Maybe that gets people rewatching your fun stream. But we don't have to do it either. I could do it just on my channel and say, "Hey, go watch the first part here."
Yeah.
Anyways, so on to the statistics.
Yeah, I'm about to. I was just sending a message to Tim, letting him know that we're about to do some statistical analysis here. So see if I can get him over here. Good. Anyways, let me share that screen as soon as I can find it here.
Oh, the one thing I did find out, at least for Canada, um, the minimum wage for 1936 was a minimum of 22.5 cents per hour.
Hmm.
And that's for just a factory job that's unskilled. It went up to almost 90 cents per hour for some jobs that were skilled.
Okay, um, so here we go. So of course, we were talking about this the other day as well. I was hoping to have at least some other people in here to reiterate this, but so what we were talking about on Friday was how kind of the changeover, like comparing comic publishing between 1938 and 1939. So as I
Yeah,
had mentioned on Thursday there,
Friday evening.
or Friday, thank you.
Yeah, the comic industry had, for comic book companies, had more than doubled, not much more,
Right,
and of course for books being produced had basically doubled.
right. At the end of
Oh,
1938, you had 8 companies in total publishing a grand total of 24 books. That's grand total between all 8, not 24 books each. Just so people understand that. So you had
yeah,
8 companies, 8 total companies publishing a total of 24 books between them, for an average of about 3 per company. And
and
then
of
in
course
1939, you had more or less everything double as you went from 8 companies, 9 companies came into existence in 1939, many of them towards the end of 39, went going from
yeah.
8 to 17, and then you had
I'll be right back.
Can you grab me my fork from in there? There's one on the floor.
all right, I guess Rick had to step away there. But as I was saying though, as we were talking,
Yep,
of
that's the
course,
one I wanted to.
I know people have often asked me about the money wise and all that. Don't really know. Don't really know that part, but as
I
I
was going to
said,
say the only thing that didn't double is the number of books per company. In fact,
right, that
approximately.
went down slightly, but in terms of total books published, in terms of companies coming into existence, everything kind of more or less just kind of doubled. But I think it's like
Yeah,
you just went over double on the companies publishing, so maybe that's why you had just under books per company.
yeah.
Now, of course,
So,
other thing. Oh, go ahead, Rick.
but well, yeah. So the average, almost basically per company per book for books, stayed about the same. You know,
Right. Yeah.
that didn't go really go up the average per thing. As we said, it went down slightly. So you know, yeah. So that's interesting to see too. That the average, the company's averages did not significantly go up or down, and especially with everything else doubling, you would think almost everything
Right.
that might double too. The average
Well,
books that they were producing.
what we also saw, of course, is with the exception of Centaur, basically every company went up.
Yeah,
They ended up by the end of 39. They ended up, with the exception of Centaur, of course, every company ended up producing more books in 39 than they did in 38.
yeah,
Centaur was the only company that went down. Um, of course, and
yeah,
from 19, as I mentioned on Friday as well, from 1936 to 1938, Centaur had been the preeminent
yeah,
publisher of the time, having
yeah,
published 7 books for quite a while there.
yeah,
At some point over that time, they were publishing the most books at the time, but then basically, essentially, their publishing went cut in half
Yeah.
during that time. But then we also saw that DC pretty much just about doubled.
Yeah.
Just under double. Now, and the note here is that most of these books, when most companies were just publishing monthly, monthly books. DC was one of the first companies to actually start publishing a regularly quarterly book.
Yeah.
Now, Rick, do you know what that quarterly book was? I think I mentioned it.
Uh, I'm gonna say Superman.
Correct. Superman went on sale in April or early May of 1939, depending upon the
Yeah.
date, cover date, June of 1939. Pretty much a year after he debuted in
Yeah.
Action.
Yeah.
So
He was one of the first characters. Well, I guess the first character to get his own self-titled book.
right now, granted,
And,
some of the other companies did have like feature books, but they were more like showcase type books where it's not that one character got their own book. It's that I think Dell had large feature comics and for color. I think let's see, United Feature Syndicate had single series in which these feature books though were being done on a monthly basis, but they would feature a different they'd give a different character the book for like a month. It's like you might get like let's say and I
yeah.
think
It may have been a quote unquote a feature book for a character, but it wasn't named after the character like
right.
Superman's. And of course, I believe the next one to happen, which will probably be in 1940, will be Batman.
Right, because that would be, and I think you're right. Because Batman will be one of them, and I'm not sure exactly when, but Captain Marvel will get his own feature book, of course, but that will be a monthly book.
Yeah.
I think it's funny because Fawcett was the first one to actually do like a regular monthly feature book. But that's again a little further down the line there.
Yeah, and that's probably what scared DC too. As we've said before, Captain Marvel became very popular very fast. Beating out Superman in a lot of ways.
And they try to tie him up in court, and eventually won out by bankrupting Fawcett, as Fawcett was trying to fight off. Oh.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I think Fawcett just gave up at first and said, "Okay, we will no longer do it or whatever," because, like you said, they couldn't afford the bills. You win. And then of course they continued for a few years after that, and eventually that probably did cause them to go bankrupt. And then years later, DC buys the characters.
Right. And then, of course, Marvel and Archie kind of came out like gangbusters there. With by the end, I think they both started up in the summer or late summer, early fall of 1939. Marvel by the end of 39, of course, was publishing 2 books. At that point, Archie was publishing 3, and then you had Dell go up a couple books. Harvey came out like gangbusters or 2.
And Harvey came out late too. They were late summer, early fall as well, weren't they?
Right. Yeah. So I mean,
there was 9 new companies. What were the other new companies, and do we know when they started?
Let's see. Well, I do. Well, yeah.
Fawcett.
Fox. Well, okay. Well, Fawcett was right at the very end. Fawcett came out in Wiz Comics. What would? Okay, so Wiz Comics Volume 1, Number 2. That was officially the first issue because they said that its number 1 was an ash can, right? An ash can. But the Wiz Comics that we know of, the first issue of Wiz Comics was actually in Indicia. It was Volume 1, Issue 2.
Yeah.
And again, they really, and just a little bit of a heads up for you guys. They're gonna come right out with another book in January of 40. Slam bang. Just
Yeah.
another thing to give you guys kind of, you know.
Yeah.
So they were coming out hard and fast, basically.
Yeah,
But
and
one
again, if
book
they
Fawcett was publishing was Wiz Comic, which of course had Captain Marvel, Ibis, the Invincible, and
yeah,
and
but
Spy Snatcher.
again, they were a company that came out probably in the fall, right?
No. It was December. It was right at the end of the year Fawcett came into existence.
Okay, well, okay, so yeah, so right now, of the four that we've mentioned, they've all come out late, probably late summer or later.
Yeah.
Probably all,
Fox,
I think.
now Fox, they actually came out early in the year, early in
Okay.
39. So they had 3 books by the end there. They started out with Wonder Comics, which eventually became Wonder World. That's where the Flame is featured.
Yeah.
And then I think it was sometime maybe in the summer that they debuted Mystery Men comics, and then I think it was like, so I think at the beginning of the year it was Wonder Comics eventually becoming Wonder World, and then Mystery Comics came out in the spring, and then the last of the 3 Fantastic Comics with Samson came out sometime I think in the summer. So they kind of
Okay.
steadily built throughout the year to where by the end they were publishing 3 comics.
Okay.
Hillman is another company that came out right at the end here. Came out like
Okay.
right, again, they came out in December here. And they debuted with 2 books. Neither one of those 2 books really had much success. That was Miracle and Rocket Comics, 4 and 3 issues respectively.
So
Okay.
so far, 6 of the books, well, 5 of the 6 have come out late in the year. We'll say past the halfway mark, maybe past the 3/4 mark.
Well, I think you passed the 3/4 mark because for the most part, I think Fox is the only company that had all of its books, I think, prior to the fall.
Well, you were saying summer, so the 9th month, which would be 3/4.
Prior to the fall, which would be yeah. So
you said a couple might have come out in the summer, so that's what I'm saying. Over half, most likely, and you're not, because you forget offhand, which is all right, whether they came out in the summer or sometime in the fall. If they came out past September or later, it's the 3/4 mark. But if it's before September, it's over the half. But anyways, and hello,
JR is
JR.
here. Hail Lord Xenu and hail Prince Xena and our only true savior. Hail Mike and Rick. As always, if you haven't already, if you can like and share this thing, see if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here we talk about grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. Basically,
Okay.
I think like 2 or 3 of the companies started up here in December.
Yeah.
Fawcett, Hillman, and Novelty Press all pretty much started up in December.
Okay. Or they wouldn't technically start it in December. But their first book debuted in December. Because,
Right. Well, you get what I'm saying, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
What
Now,
about
Hillman Comics? They would become, from what I understand, they would become famous for publishing Airboy. Airboy, the character in Airboy comics.
Okay. And when did you say they debuted theirs?
Hillman?
Yeah.
Well, they debuted in December. They're one of the three that debuted in December.
Okay.
Boston Gilman and Novelty Press all debuted in December.
What about this Lev Gleason?
Lev Gleason came out, I think, I believe it might have been August or September, around there, because they had Silver Street Comics. That came out, probably in the summer, I think. Late
Okay.
summer, early fall, could have been a little bit earlier.
Okay.
But they were one of these companies that was kind of sputtering along. It's like, even though the book was you could technically call it a monthly book, it's one of those things that they weren't exactly publishing the book monthly, even though it was basically designed more as a monthly book.
So basically, we're just saying that it was supposed to be monthly, but they were not always good on their delivery dates.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, and RJ, one thing RJ was mentioning to me before too about Lev Gleason. They're the ones that gave us the first Daredevil character, not Marvel's Daredevil. They actually had a character named Daredevil. It's kind of funny too, because Lev Gleason, when I reading through some of the early the first couple issues of Silver Streak this past few months here, they've had characters that had similar names to Marvel. They've had a character called the Wasp. They have a character called the Claw. So they kind of there are a number of different characters that we've seen that but yeah. So Lev Gleason came out late summer, maybe early fall at the latest, but I think it was August, September. Novelty Press was the third company that more or less started or had its first book published in December 1939 with Target Comic #1 that RJ and I went over a couple weeks ago, and they had a very interesting opening salvo, as it were, because for those you guys might want to go back and see when we covered Novelty Press, because the cover of it kind of looks actually like a Target. That was kind of one of the funny things about it. Now, granted, Target Comics only had, I think, they only had one true superhero. They had more of a Western hero with Target, but I remember your name was White.
So what's the next after Novelty? What's the next company to come out in 1939?
The next company that came out in the last company that came out in 39 was Standard
Okay.
Comics.
And when did they come out, if you can remember?
Okay, so their first books, best books, which they don't. Again, this is another situation. They only had 4 issues, and they kind of spread them out throughout the year. They were initially designed to be a initially designed to be a monthly title, but they didn't really. Again, they kind of spread it out, though. In fact, Thrilling Comics, what we just read Friday, was like their second book to start publishing. But at the same time, here's kind of the funny thing too about Standard there. Yes, by the end of 39, they'd have 2 books, but in that, they had a debut and a final book, basically, because Best Books #4, the last of the Best Book issues, they would end there. Now, other comics would come out, of course, but then Thrilling Comics would start up. Now, when Best Books first came out, that came out, I think, in January or February. So they were probably one of the first of the 9 new companies.
Okay, so 7 of the 9 started halfway through, maybe 3/4 of the way through.
Yeah, basically,
which is interesting.
Started in the last 4 months of the year. 7 of the 9 started in the last 4 months of the year, which tells you something, because it can kind of tell you something there, that things were really starting to take, as David McKay added another book, Magic Comics. Eastern Color stayed. Well, Eastern Color for the longest time. Here's the funny thing about Eastern Color too. Eastern Color was actually the first company to ever come into the first comic book company to come into existence. They predated
DC.
They predated DC by a year. Okay, they predated DC by a year, so because they came. Well, actually, I think they started up with a couple one shots. Actually, Eastern Color goes all the way back to 1933 because in their like very first year, 33 to 34, they came out with a couple of one shots. They came out with, I think, one a comic in February and then one in like November that year. They were different books. They were kind of like promotional copies.
Yeah, I get
copies that they just kind of put out there, and then in 1934, in like July of 1934, I believe that was when they came out with Famous Funnies, and that was from July of 1934 all the way up to the end of 1939 here. That's the only book that Eastern Color is. They, in terms of numbers of issues, obviously, they have the highest number of issues at this point. At this point they're in like I think they're in the 60s in terms of number of issues.
Oh, wow.
And I think the closest second is maybe somewhere in the double digits.
Mike, I think Timothy might be in the background.
Oh, okay.
He's saying he should pay attention to the private chat.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Sorry about that, Tim. I saw you did send a message on Facebook, but we were just so caught up in talking about what we were talking about. Yes, all right.
I want to see the Melvin 3.
There, you like that? You
Yes,
like that?
better.
Look at is that what the boy you're liking? Ooh.
Yes, that's better.
Back cover. Ooh.
Okay. Front cover. The front cover of Melvin 3.
Look at that.
There you go. Give you the full screen there, Tim, for a moment.
Is that what you freaks want? Look at it.
Yeah.
Look at it.
Look at those awesome colors and those inks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Look at that.
What great artist did all those inks?
Well, it was penciled by Sid Tellis, but it was inked by a what's his name? Stevie, Greg. Let me look at this. Let me look at the. A Rick Pipper.
A Rick Pipper? Okay.
Yes.
I don't know him.
It was inked by Rick Pipper. There's also got like, an art section. Here's some. This is a kind of a dedicated artwork to Andy because this whole issue is dedicated to him. And then a little more because we needed a little extra pages to be able to print. So I got some more fan art right there. Oh, and a think preview of Zed and Odysseus 5-page story there. Then this book right here is drawn and inked by Rob Ewing and lettered. So you got the it's kind of a zero issue. So you got the yeah. And we also used some of the fan art from this one's this was supposed to be a stretch goal, but we didn't get that high up. But now it's art by Sherwin Seo. I mean Sherwin Ko Sames right there, who did Melvin One.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, artwork looks pretty good there.
oh yeah, this is probably the dopest issues in the Melvin series so far.
Yeah. Well, sorry, I wasn't trying to ignore you. We just were
Oh,
so caught up in what we were talking about. I didn't even, I always check back. I usually try to check back as much as I can, but we were
yeah,
just so caught up with what we were talking
that's
about.
okay. This is why I hate putting my laptop at my desk because this cuts off the top of my head and you see this.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's all
Well,
right.
so
Well,
were
then
you
angle
following
your
what we were?
camera up.
It is. It is. It's just that. See.
Yeah,
Well, then,
basically, I think what he's saying is even if he was to adjust the computer screen, it still cut off his head,
Yeah.
cut off the top of his head. Yeah. So, how much of what we're talking about did you catch, Tim?
You were doing a list of all the companies in 1939.
well, we
No,
were comparing
1930.
the. Well, we were comparing 38, the companies that were around in 38 to 39. Like
Uh huh.
1930, in 1939, 9 new comic companies popped up. And, they ended up boosting the comic market by 24 more books. Those companies. Well, not necessarily 24 more books, because some of the other companies that were existing, like DC, almost doubled their thing, but they ended
And
up adding a bunch of comics.
there probably weren't any like like superstar artists yet. It was probably like a bunch of unknown people, huh?
Well, that's
Well,
not entirely true because you did. I mean, um, like Will Eisner, for example, him and some of the people that worked with him, like Jack Kirby, what they were doing, they were acting more, and that's why you had Will Eisner in particular have all these different like pseudonyms because what they were
yeah,
doing, they were acting more like a publishing house in a way, and they were
yeah,
publishing a bunch of stories for all these different companies. You had Eisner's work in Fiction House, in
yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Well, unfortunately, the superstar artists, as you say, they weren't thinking about things like that back then. You know, they were just artists doing stuff. Because comics, they were slowly, as you can see, they were on the rise to becoming something, and people were noticing that they were something. There was money to be made with them, but
yeah.
they weren't something yet completely
So
like
so
they are
just
today.
yeah. So just I'll go back down here to so at the end of 1938, right? The end of 1938, you had a grand total of 8 companies, and between those 8 companies, they were publishing a grand total of 24 books for an average of 3 books per company. Okay, um, and by the end of 39, more or less, the number of companies and books had essentially doubled. You had 9 new companies. 7 of those 9, as we were just talking about, starting up right at the end of 39 in the last 4 months there, in the fall, early winter there, um, came into existence. Um, and they were publishing a grand total of 48 books between those 17 books, for an average of approximately 2.8 or just under 3. So um,
Yeah. So
even if we don't have the sales numbers, you can tell by this that the medium was starting to pick up speed here. In fact, one of the other points I made when I was talking about this on Friday was, with the exception of Centaur, everybody here increased.
yeah,
Everybody,
the 7 of the companies that did exist increased in
yeah,
numbers, and of course the new companies came in. Some with one, some with 2 or 3.
yeah. Now, let's say from about 1936, when they came into existence, through 1938, Centaur had been the preeminent company. They were like the big dog, as it were. They were through 38. They were publishing 7 monthly books. Now, unless otherwise noted, the numbers here are reflecting monthly books. Unless otherwise, as you noticed up top there, when up with DC, I did separate out between monthly and quarterly books.
Yeah. Well, you said how that number was made up of.
What was that?
You said how the number 7 was made up of. You know, in brackets, if you will.
Yeah. So Centaur, which had been the big dog up through like 38, had started to drop off. Now Centaur would eventually close down in 42. A couple of their books would continue on, but just for a couple more years. They finally completely shut their doors in 44. But
yeah, but I like how DC and Centaur switched numbers.
Yeah, well,
DC went from 4.
Whereas Centaur's publishing was cut in half, DC just about doubled. Now DC here had 6 monthly titles, which were Action, Adventure, All American, Detective, Flash, and More Fun. And they were basically the first company to have a quarterly feature book. Now, Rick, don't tell. I want to see if Tim knows this piece of trivia I'm about to say. Do you know what that one quarterly feature was, Tim, at the end of 39 that DC was doing?
Is he even still here? Oh, he's here, but is he near his mic?
Oh, I didn't even know. I didn't even know. I got to wait till
I think he walked away from the thing. I think we've been talking to ourselves in the chat again, which is all right.
Yeah.
But it's going to be interesting to see how much it grows in 1940 and what things is. You should do this all the way back to the add on the previous years for this too. Mike.
Well, yeah, I mean, I had I had done this before without making this. The only reason I even made this chart, I didn't feel the need to for the first few years there because it wasn't as steady,
But just for either later in the year or the year of this or whatever comparison. But for the next one, or for when we do 1930 to 1940, you should just add in the extra just so people can see the progression.
I was gonna kind of do that, but I don't know if I may have to do a new because I don't know if I could do that in this particular notebook as it were because this is a notebook on my Yahoo I'm using. I don't know if I'd have the space, but what I was gonna do is just do like when we do like 39 to 40 there, and it's like. And it, because I remember a few weeks ago when I was on when I was watching one of RJ's shows, right? One of his, Pops came in and positively, well, you're still in 1939, and the one thing I had to try to explain to people was, well, these last few months here, right? The last few months, like the last 3 months of coverage. Okay, October, November, and December of 1939. Each month of coverage, right? To cover each month. October.
You got 17 companies.
13 weeks each.
Yeah, because it got 17 different. You got 17 different companies.
Well, mind you, I'm not necessarily while I'm doing the majority of them. I'm not necessarily doing every single company and every single book every single
Yeah,
time. You know,
yeah. I get that, but okay. So 1 week, like the week, 1 week you might do one that has one book, and you might do two or three of them that have the one book, and read something from each of them. You know.
right? Yeah, but what I'm saying is, when I first started this, yeah, I could, like when I was still doing 33 through 35, those went pretty quick because, I could, if any, in fact, I think 33 to 35 I did in one night probably. But then once you get to 36, then we started, um,
Even 36 goes
uh,
fairly
like
fast.
36 and 30, then 30, now 37, that like the end of 37, that's when quality came into existence. So quality, um, quality, that's where like, feature comics is, and Smash Comics, you notice that one went up one comic. They doubled too. Granted, it was a smaller doubling. It was just went from one book to two, but that's where, of course, one of our favorites on this channel that we often like to kid about, the Clock, aka Captain Napkin Face. Um, um,
But yeah, I just think it would be interesting to have something with all of them. Yes, of course, when you're going from 39 to 40, you want to focus on the 39 to 40. Like when you get through thing, and
mhm.
that's
Are you talking about the changing prevailing attitudes in the comic book creator and in pop culture?
well,
No,
well,
no, we're not talking about. We're just we're what we're talking about is just a differential in numbers here, and just in
yeah,
terms of just.
but at the same time, that plays into it though, because these numbers are going up because more people are reading, more companies are producing books, so it's
Mhm.
becoming a thing in popular culture. Or I
Ooh,
forget
ooh.
how it can.
In 1940s, World War II, you should probably do studying on what in wartime led people to read more comics. What about the war actually would kind of boost comic books or get more readers, or what? Because usually,
Yeah,
I think we'll do that in a more subtle manner as we're reading the books themselves.
yeah,
As we'll
and
be reading the book. The whole idea, part of the idea of reading the books too, is to experience what it was like for those who were reading the books back then. You
yeah,
know, to get a sense of how, how,
yeah. Um,
that's a big
the,
part of that's again a big part of reading the book, is having that experience. You know,
yeah. What I would suggest too, when you do this next, from like when you have 1939 in the first column and 1940, the other thing you might want to add is what type of books each company was producing. Like just regular funny books, superhero books, Western books, war books,
well, yeah,
or a combination.
I mean, I would probably be doing, that more verbally, because to break it down like that, right? To break it down like that, um, break it down like that would take up, again, more space than I have on in this notebook page.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Maybe,
you've got a
but
lot.
we can actually do that a little bit right now. Here, we can talk about that right now. But the first thing I want to do before we do that is, since Tim is back now, Tim, you may notice there that I posted that DC was publishing 7 books, 6 of them monthly, 1 quarterly. There, at the end of 1939. Do you want to take a guess at what that 1 quarterly book was that they were publishing in 1939? Oh, did he walk off again?
He comes back for 5 seconds. sleeves. But no, the what I was going to say is you have a while, obviously, to figure out how to do this, how to maybe get this all these different little bits of information in there, before doing that. Like I'm not sure when you came up with doing this, recently. Was this like within
Yeah,
the
well,
last
this
week?
just came to me this time because well, I've always I'd always been talking about like I talk about the differences in comparing the comic from one year to the next. The only thing was the only reason that I quote unquote wrote it down here or put it in this notebook was because it's getting to the point where okay, now we're getting into so many books that
Yeah,
like going to where you only had, let's say, going from like one company publishing, let's say, 2 or 3 books to 5 publishing, a total of 11 books or something like that. I don't remember the exact numbers there,
yeah, I get.
but I could more verbally say that. But now we're getting to higher numbers here and more keeping, and to just keep that all in my head, that's going to give me a headache.
Yeah, and again, that's why I'm saying add this extra information, maybe for 1940 to 1939.
In terms of like the idea of the types of books,
Yeah,
I can do that verbally. Like DC, okay, so the 4 books that DC was publishing in 1938 were Action Comics, Detective Comics, Adventure Comics, and More Fun. Okay,
okay,
Action,
those were the comics.
Action.
Now,
Those are the 4. Now, Action was kind of a superhero anthology. Like, okay, first off, all the monthly books are anthologies. Okay,
yeah,
all the monthly books are obviously anthologies. Okay,
yeah.
so
So there'd be a
Action,
whole bunch of different types
more
of
of a
stories.
superhero anthology. Detective was initially, because even before Batman debuted in Detective Volume 20. So okay, I was wrong. There are some like Detective, obviously that because they actually started up, I think, in 1937 as well. So they were well up into double digits. So, but Detective was more or less a detective anthology. In fact, before Batman debuted, the I guess the primary feature in that was Slam Bradley,
Yeah.
another
So
Siegel
again,
creation.
but it was basically with anthologies mainly focused on detective type anthologies. Although Batman added a superhero detective
Right.
anthology.
Well, yeah. Adventure was more of a generalized adventure type.
Yeah,
Wasn't until more recently, yeah, and I guess a
yeah,
lot of the DC books are now in like some of them are getting like more funds up into the 40th
yeah,
issue, 40th,
yeah.
all that goes
But
adventure. But More Fun and Adventure are more kind of mixed anthologies. They have some action adventure stuff and some humor stuff in it. And
yeah,
then in 1939, the 3 books that were added, of course, were All American, Flash, and then as well, I didn't want to give it away because I wanted Tim to try to guess it. But
yeah. Well, don't worry
the
about it
two
right now.
anthology books were All American and Flash, and All American was kind of a mixed anthology. They kind of had a mix of some superhero, some adventure
Yeah,
superhero, and
yeah,
some sci-fi life, and then
yeah. Well, see, when I'm thinking of putting this stuff in there, I'm just thinking it's just a quick. You can create some sort of legend that A stands for anthology, S for superhero,
well,
D for
okay.
detective, or
For
M
the
for
most part, they
mix.
were all at this point, Rick. They were all anthologies. They were
Yeah,
all
yeah,
anthologies. Okay.
yeah. I
Um,
get that. I get that.
Even
But
the
I'm
feature
just
book. Well, the feature books were feature books. So those were probably not anthologies, even though they'd have multiple stories. But it would usually the feature books would focus on usually on one character. Sometimes they might have that like there would come a point in the book we're talking about where the middle feature would be I'll talk about that more once we get Tim back in. I can get him to sit down for a moment and answer the question, see if he knows which one.
But I'm just saying, so it can be in the comparison. Like I get that you don't want it to take up a lot of space, and all that. I get that. It's just so you don't necessarily have to go through this big stuff. We can just say these books are, detective, you know, suspense, superhero, or mixed, stuff like that. Just
like Marvel, the two books that they had were Marvel Well, initially started out like funny because Marvel was initially came out as Timely Comics. It was the name of the company.
Yeah, and the
Their
first
very
book was
first
Marvel
book was
Comics.
Marvel Comics. Okay, and then they changed the name to Marvel Mystery Comics, and then they had Daring Mystery Comics.
Yeah, so those might be considered mystery, suspense, superhero mystery, suspense,
But yeah, so let's see,
Yeah.
Archie. Let's see, the Archie you had. Well, Pep Comics came out like right towards the end as well. That was in the latter part of the year, but Pep Comics that would eventually become the anthology home for Archie, from what I understand. But
Yes.
now, Rick, because you read, I think you read Pep Comics #1 with me. Do you remember? Do you remember who the lead feature in that one was?
I believe it was the Shield.
That's correct. It was the Shield. And
The
before that, of course,
the first
you had Blue Ribbon
superhero.
Comics. You had Blue Ribbon Comics with Orangutan, which was a
Yeah.
dog, and and and
So these two were
Top Notch
mixed.
Comics. And
These,
so those two, the books that Archie did, those were mixed. A lot of them were mixed anthologies. They had
yeah,
some
but
of them had.
that's what I'm just saying is just a quick thing there where we don't have to go into a lot of detail when telling people this, or like just like you're separating, that 7 is 6 monthly and 1 quarterly. That's what we're separating it into, just something like that I'm saying to add, so people know, like if they're doing like a complete funny book, like some of them did, and then they're doing a superhero book at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again,
And
these are not like Granted, they're even back in that you might have had some of them that were more genre specific themed anthologies.
Yeah.
Primarily super. Like the 6 Dell titles, the 6 Dell books. Those were made up entirely of reprints.
Yeah. And then again, that's something else you could say, funny reprints,
right.
adventure reprints.
The 2 books from Harvey were superhero action adventure anthologies, basically,
Yeah. And you've got some time, and if you need any help trying to figure this thing out for, to add any extra little bits of information, I'm sure I can help, or even RJ.
I could simply just I can verbally do that. I don't need to put it out. I don't need to write it out here. I can just and indicating I can just tell you what books they were, and then
Yeah, but just like this list is getting bigger for numbers, that that's going to be a lot of books to think about. If you have some sort of cue to do it, to know, it's nice.
Yeah.
We got what?
Basically the 4 remaining Centaur books were like action adventure anthology. Again, they were all and Eastern Color was kind of more of a like the famous Funnies book was, or famous Funnies book was again kind of a mix
reprint.
of a mix of reprints and some original stories. David McKay, that was definitely all reprints. They added a book with like, so King Comics, Ace Comics, and Magic Comics were the three anthology books, and
Yeah.
they had a
Yeah.
feature book as well. Again, much like single series
Yeah.
and
I guess that I was thinking, having the type of books there in some sort of shorthand, again, tells you what types of books are selling too. You know,
Mhm.
it's part of the statistics. Like, are reprints on the rise? Are they on the, are they sinking? Are Western comics on the rise or on the down low? Horror. All that sort of different things.
Well, Tim, you
What?
back?
Yeah, I'm still here. I was just listening. What was
Okay.
the first book to be just a solo book, just one character?
Well,
It
that's
was
what I
he
was
was
trying to.
asking
That's
before.
what I was trying to get you to answer here. Okay, so here, DC had the first quarterly feature book. Okay, they had the six monthly anthologies they had were Action Comics, Adventure Comics, All American, Detective, Flash, and More Fun. DC 1939 was the year they had one quarterly feature. Do you want to take a wild guess at what that one quarterly feature was for DC?
Probably Batman,
Nope.
Superman.
Correct. Batman would come a year later. It's kind of funny because Superman and Batman were probably the two first like quarterly features. Even though eventually Fawcett would eventually have a monthly feature with Captain Marvel Adventures, but initially they were starting out with quarterly features. If a character got popular enough, DC was one of the first ones to do this. They got it like a character like Superman. So Superman debuted in Action Comics #1
In
on sale date
38. That's why he got his first.
1938, right? So cover date of June. 1 year later, Superman #1 comes out. Okay, Batman debuts in Detective Comics Volume 1, Issue 27, and I think it was the on sale date was 1939. Cover
May of
date.
39, I believe.
What was that?
May of 39, I believe.
On sale date for Detective Comics 27, #1 27.
Yeah, I
Cover
think
date
it was.
May of 39. But he would come out exactly like 1 year later with his own book. So, but yes, the one quarterly title here was Superman.
It was Superman.
A couple, but as I also pointed out, most of them grew, one decrease, and then two of them basically more or less stayed the same from 38 to 39.
30.
United Feature Syndicate stayed at 3, and then staying at 1. Haven't stayed at 1 pretty much from its very beginning at this point.
And
Eastern
Fiction
Color
House
was
quadrupled there.
Yeah, Fiction House quadrupled in 19, like towards, I'd say it was in 1938. I think it was sometime in the summer of 38. Fiction House started publishing Jumbo Comics, which of course the lead feature in that was, I believe, Sheena, Queen of the Jungle, and the primary backup feature was Dr. Hayward, Weird Stories of the Supernatural with Dr. Hayward. And then throughout 39, they added 3 more books. Jungle Book, let's see, Jungle Book, not the Disney movie, mind you, but that was the name of or Jungle Comics, actually, Jungle Comics. Jungle Comics, Planet Comics, and I don't remember the third one off my head, but Fight Comic, Jungle Comic, Planet Comic, and Fight Comic, and those were all, of course, kind of genre specific. Obviously, those were more like Jungle Comic featured all jungle adventure stories. Planet
Okay.
Comic were more sci-fi, a sci-fi anthology, and then Fight Comic is kind of more of a tough guy adventure type anthology.
Okay. Yeah.
So a lot of the companies though were still doing more mixed anthologies where they were mixing in action adventure and
Detective, slice of life.
right, slice of life and adventure. And I did. It looks like I just got a
Well,
message from Metal here, so let me just go check that real quick. Um, uh, so Metal saying sorry, in transit most of the day. Only just got in range of an internet connection now. Still not at desk. Probably won't make it. All right. Well, that's a shame because I would have liked it. I would have liked to have him on for this conversation, but
yeah. Yeah. Well, depending, he's still got another half hour or so. But I was gonna say we can come back to this if he gets in time. But we have been talking about this for about an hour, believe it or not.
yeah, hour 20. Yeah. Well, yeah, I didn't. Well, we kind of gave Tim a shot to show off
Yeah.
Then,
Melvin.
yep.
Rick, did you want to talk about anything, any projects?
Unfortunately, I haven't got really anything to show at the moment because of not having a hard drive that I can access with my information.
Oh, I came up with a. Go ahead. Anyway.
No, go ahead, Tim.
Okay, let's let Rick finish, and then
Yeah.
you
Well,
Yeah.
no, I was just saying, I really don't have anything at the moment that I can show off or whatever because um, I don't. My one hard drive that I have, well, my external, I need to get the information off it. Hopefully that will be sometime that started sometime this week, maybe next Friday or Saturday. So maybe I'll have some good news to report on Sunday. But I don't really have anything to show off at the moment. I was just going to suggest we go into an article or something.
Well, I was going to share.
yeah, this was kind of the main thing I was going to look at. But as you said, we've been talking about it for a while. But I'm just Tim, if you want, because I know you seem like you were about to start saying something. So
I wanted to share this. I came up with a slogan for my comic book company.
What is it?
Well, I was gonna show you. I came up with that idea. I don't know if this is gonna be a sticker or a patch or something, but it's really cool looking.
Okay. Well, you got to show it for him to show you.
Yeah, I'm sharing a screen.
Oh yeah, I was off trying to message Metal.
Metal?
Yeah.
All about that action.
Yes. It's actually a quote from a running back for Seattle called Marshawn Lynch, but the full quote was actually all about that action, boss. But
So you could just say AATA.
no, because that would be
AATA.
no.
And people will be
no.
like, "What's that?" All about that action.
Yeah, well, and because I was noticing there are two types of people in independent comic books. There are talkers and there are doers. And if you're a doer, you're getting things done, and if you're a talker, you're just talking. So I came up with a slogan since I seem to be proactive about getting books done. Velvet Comics, all about that action. Because I don't talk about getting books done. I actually have me and my team actually get the books done.
Yeah.
So that's why that. I was also listening to a hardcore band called Twitching Tongues, and that kind of got me pumped to kind of think of that slogan. They're pretty hard, man. They're pretty rough. Hardcore, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no standing around at their shows unless you want to get a knee or a fist to the back of the head or something. It's
Yeah. Yep. Tim and it's AATH or TA.
yeah. Don't try to abbreviate, Rick.
Tim and it's AATA.
What? There's TNA where?
Actually, speaking of TNA, that's a bit of a now. I know you two don't follow wrestling as much, but for those,
Not as much as I
You're
used
talking
to.
about wrestling with TNA?
well,
I
this
used to have
piece of
that.
news just came out like last month at their Bound for Glory pay-per-view. So, Impact Wrestling announced at last month's Bound for Glory pay-per-view, which is basically their WrestleMania, that they would actually be going back to the TNA brand name starting at January's Hard to Kill pay-per-view.
So they're going back
Impact
to their.
now, for those of you who may not know what I'm doing. So Impact, current wrestling promotion known as Impact Wrestling, which airs on Access TV on Thursday nights. Okay.
So they're going back to their.
They started out back in 2002 as Total Nonstop Action, or known, as TNA. Okay.
Their breasts and butts.
They were initially an NWA affiliate. They were initially, created by the Jerry and Jeff Jarrett, the father and son, duo. But and then eventually they went through a number of ownership changes over the years, and went through a number of name changes. They'd recently been Impact, and then they announced at last month's Bound for Glory pay-per-view that they would be returning to the TNA brand name, and they Total Nonstop Action, and they've been plugging that ever since. And now that change will become official at their Hard to Kill pay-per-view in January. So, since you had mentioned the term TNA, I just I'd throw that in there.
Yes.
Tidbit in there.
TNA takes on B&B. Breasts and butts.
So let's see.
It's all women wrestling all the time.
Yeah, let's see. We're at our. I do want to try to give. I do want to try to give Metal a chance to see if he can get in here, because as I said, I did want to really hear, when we present him the information.
Yeah. So is there any?
I guess I could go try to see if I can find like a short release article or something like that, but there wasn't anything over this past week in terms of news that I really wanted to follow up on, because there was one article I went that Mike S. Miller article, but there was somebody else involved in that as well that I didn't really want to talk about, but since I'd already started, ended up having to. But let me just.
Wait a minute.
I covered that. There hasn't really been a whole lot of.
Rick, are you wearing two pairs of glasses?
Yeah, I am wearing two pairs of glasses again
Why?
because my good pair broke. But I've already went for an eye appointment and I've ordered glasses.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
So
Yeah,
You
I
got
need.
these are
you
just
got,
the dollar store ones.
you got the insurance that covered that?
Yeah, it's called Money in the Bank.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Because I was saying if you needed help finding insurance to sign up for, I could send you. I could shoot you a few links if you needed it.
Yeah, well, I don't think that's going to help me in Canada.
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Right.
Actually, I just thought of something we could talk. I mean, I was talking to Rick about it a little bit earlier, of course. So like, so I over the next couple weeks here on MeTV, right? Um, from like 3 to 5 on Sunday after, well, 3 to 5 Pacific time. I think it's 6 p.m. Eastern. MeTV is show like this week they showed a boy named Charlie Brown from Bill Mendelsohn, and the next week they were showing um, Snoopy Come Home as part of their Very Merry MeTV presentations.
Oh,
Uh,
good grief.
So was A Boy Named Charlie Brown their first movie, or was it
no,
like?
I think it was actually one of their later ones because I think like It's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown, which was a Halloween special, came out in '66. Charlie Brown Christmas came out in '65. From what I was reading earlier in terms of the release dates, but
When did A Boy Named Charlie Brown come out?
69, 1969.
Six.
I mean, they've had they've had a number of movies and specials. Ones that we just mentioned, of course, Maybe Come Home. They also had, of course, Race for Your Life, Charlie Brown, in which the Peanuts gang goes off to summer camp, and they have to deal with, and particularly Charlie Brown, Charlie, Linus, and Snoopy have to deal with, a set of three pretty nasty kids, bullies, what have you.
We were going to die, Charlie Brown. They'll run your entrails through the town.
Yeah. But so now, Grant, I know Rick, your Thanksgiving was last month, but
Yeah.
do you guys have any like fond memories of any like Thanksgiving specials or holiday specials?
Not
From
necessarily a Thanksgiving special, but every year I'd watch the Star Wars trilogy and fall asleep, and I'd never actually see the entire trilogy. I'd kind of pass out in Turkey.
Well, it's kind of funny because
Yeah.
at least during the Christmas season,
Yeah. That
it's
that
kind of
just
funny.
makes you a real turkey.
This particular Christmas special actually debuted November 26, 1980, and you guys probably heard me talk about this before. Yogi's First Christmas, right? I can count on one hand the number of times I've actually missed it.
Christmas specials. You want to talk about Christmas specials? Mickey's a Christmas Carol when I was a kid.
Yeah. Well, there have been a
That
lot of Christmas specials, and we're going to probably be getting into those pretty soon, too, here in a couple of weeks here at least.
Well, one thing I used to like watching on Christmas was I think it's Alistair Smythe's Christmas Carol.
Alistair Smythe, isn't he a character from Marvel?
Maybe I've got the name wrong. The
Yeah, because Alistair Smythe, I remember, Alistair Smythe is the son of Spencer Smythe, who they were both enemies of Spider-Man. And the only reason I know that is because I remember Spider-Man the animated series.
Yeah.
There's a 2018 Christmas Carol, which I think is really brilliant.
No.
So
of course.
It goes more into the backstory of why Scrooge is so awful to people.
Yeah. Well, that's the one.
They all do, really.
Yeah, that's the one story. A Christmas Carol has been adapted by just about every media form you could think of. you know,
Oh, yeah.
television, movies.
This
You
one
know,
was in association with the BBC. It was pretty good because they go into you know, I think it talks about how when he was a boy he was left at some school, and the guy the I guess his headmaster or something was really how should I say, creepy to him. Yeah,
so you're
but
talking about the special that they did was they did more of a deep dive into his
yeah,
past.
yeah.
Because
And
I do know that some of this, like I know Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol,
yeah,
they kind of hinted at that, like where he would be left, you know, and there have been a few, like Flintstones Christmas Carol too, where they talk about he got left at school, and his sister came to get him to take him home and all that.
Yeah,
well,
well,
this version, he refuses because he's got an arrangement with Scrooge's father. So she pulls out a gun and basically at gunpoint gets him out of there.
yeah. Well,
It's
it's
pretty
from
pretty
what
good.
like from the times that I've watched it, I'm pretty sure, like obviously his dad sent him off to school, and from what I get with a couple of her comments is normally he wouldn't be allowed to come home during Christmas.
Yeah,
He
that
would be,
was the yeah.
and that's all. That's really through any of the
But I
actual
think what
Christmas.
Tim is getting at too is that the one that BBC did really took a very dark turn with the story. I
Yeah,
mean,
like
Yeah,
he,
not,
they,
not,
they
not
made
that the
it.
story, not that the adaptations that were presented were like, you know, sunflowers and
they kind of
roses
glossed
or what
they kind
have
of
you.
glossed
But
over it. They kind of glossed over it, but
Well,
right,
they
like he,
don't do it in detail, and they obviously don't show the gun, or gun
yeah,
or whatever, because I think that's more a new adaptation. I don't think
yeah,
that's in the book, but it's
yeah,
playing on the fact that
yeah,
he was sent to boarding school and he wasn't really allowed to come home for whatever
yeah.
reason.
Well, you really do feel for this guy. Like it shows when he was like a boy, he had like a pet mouse that his sister gave him, and so his father found out about it and killed the mouse right in front of him. It just it's like wow. And then like at the end, he doesn't think he deserves forgiveness, but he's going to try to be a better person, which I find more realistic than all of a sudden he's just like, "Yay, Christmas, yay!" You know?
Well, see, the thing is,
well,
with
again, though,
Scrooge,
those are more cartoons and more directed towards kids. So I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
yeah,
well,
they wanted to simplify it a bit more. I mean,
yeah,
with Scrooge, it's always been, about his greed.
yeah. He also this I guess that this is definitely not in the book, but Mrs. Cratchit came to him trying to get some money, right? So he propositioned her. So she went to his house, and just before she removed all her clothes, he goes, "Stop! You've made my point." And he gave her money. He goes, "Everybody has a price, right?" And at the end of the special, she let him know, you let it, you've done this nice thing for us, but I'm not going to forgive you. And so he says, "I don't deserve it, and I won't, and I will refuse it. I'm just going to have to try to be a better person." I find that a little more realistic
Well,
of how people act, really. So, what do you think?
well, yeah. I mean, I haven't obviously seen the BBC special, but
Oh, you need to see it.
I tend to prefer the animated versions. You
Yeah,
know, I'm probably more idealistic, maybe a little more naive, but I just think we should strive towards those naive ideals. You know, because I think they ultimately are better for us. Granted, it doesn't mean that we're going to be perfect, but you know,
I just find that version a little more realistic because that's how people act.
yeah. And I get what you're saying because yeah, I'm sure that if
It's
not
more
for the
relatable.
we're it's funny because in Christian circles, right? We talk about how as as human beings we're very sinful. We're basically at the core pretty evil creatures that are saved only by the grace of God. We may at times try to do what's right, but ultimately, if if not for the fear of punishment or anything like that, in part, we might be more inclined to just act more animalistic towards each other, more primal towards each other.
Uh,
If
I mean,
part,
I don't find that. I find it more relatable because people just don't go like all from being crotchety and mean to being all of a sudden so happy, like this kind of happy-go-lucky crap.
yeah, but wouldn't the world be a lot better off if that could happen? People just,
but people don't. People
yeah,
never.
it may not be realistic, but I think it's still an ideal that we should always strive for. Should always strive for to do what's right, just for the sake of doing what's right.
I find
Now,
doing what's right is not what I'm talking about. Even the most pious person doesn't act the way they try to portray them in.
Okay,
That's why I like The Chosen. I find The Chosen very how I had imagined Jesus to be like.
well, yeah, I haven't seen The Chosen, but The Chosen you're talking about it's a film based on Jesus Christ's life.
Yes,
it's a TV series, sort of.
the TV series, yeah, but it's very.
Because I think Rex has been going over that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
well,
very,
he didn't watch it on air, but he has watched it.
I think it's the best portrayal of Jesus on film ever. To be honest with you, because they make him. He's not like. I don't know. There's something about like films they do before where they just like. They more touched on the ideal of Jesus and not the ideal and Jesus as the human being slash God.
There's been a couple probably as good, maybe a slightly better, but the thing that The Chosen has going for it is that it's a series. It's not trying to get everything in within 2 hours. It's giving us time to see this stuff over.
And
a lot more.
The way Jesus acts, don't you find that it's almost like you can imagine him as a person,
Yeah.
and
Well,
as the Messiah.
There's been a couple others that have done the same thing. I'm trying to think. Bruce Maraschino, I think, was the actor for Jesus. But again, it was a 2 hour movie, that he was in portraying Jesus. So
Right.
there's only so much you can capture in 2 hours. Where this has The Chosen,
Yeah.
like 8 so far. We've had 3 seasons, 8 episodes each, all a minimum of half an hour to 40 to over an hour episodes. Probably more 40 minutes to an hour. So that gives you a lot more time to explore his character better.
Would you say that Passion did pretty good covering the brutality of his crucifixion?
Oh, yeah, and I think The Chosen's going to do real good for that too when it gets to it. And hold on. Yes. Oh, sorry. Hold on.
Well, we're at like an hour 49 here, and it doesn't look like metal is gonna make it. So I'm thinking once Rick gets back, we can start to kind of wind things down. Like do this day in each history, and then just close everything out. What do you say about that, Tim?
Yeah, it's your show.
All right. Yeah. Because I think even if we don't have the actual sales numbers too on just seeing how it grows by looking at the number of books that were published, that's another key thing too. Anyways, Rick, what I was telling Tim here is we're now at like hour 40, almost hour 50 here, so I think we're gonna start to wrap up here. I think I'm gonna do this.
That sounds good.
All right, so let me just go ahead and all right. Well, today is Sunday, November 19th, 2023. So we're gonna go ahead and take a look back at this weekend. Meet history. History. So first off, we're gonna head back 25 years ago yesterday. On yesterday's date, 25 years ago, the first episode of Powerpuff Girls premiered on Cartoon Network.
How many years
So,
ago?
25 years ago yesterday.
Only 25 years ago?
Yeah.
I thought that
So
would have been longer.
premiere episode of Powerpuff. Now, granted, they did have an earlier appearance on What a Cartoon, but in terms of their own series, this was the premiere episode of their own series on Cartoon Network 25 years ago yesterday, back on November 18th, 1998. And going back 20 years ago yesterday, on yesterday's date 20 years ago, WWE held its Monday Night Raw event from the Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, Tennessee. On the night, on the night in the main events, Daniel Bryan, CM Punk, Cody Rhodes, Goldust, and the Usos defeat the Shield of Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns, and Seth Rollins, and the Wyatt family members of Bray Wyatt, Eric Rowan, and Luke Harper. That was like 10 years, actually 10 years ago, not 20 years ago, 10 years ago in 2013. You also saw R-Truth and Xavier Woods defeat the Rhinestone Cowboys of Drew McIntyre and Jinder Mahal, defeat Slater in their corner. Big E defeated Curtis Axel to win the Intercontinental Championship on that date. And in the opening match, Randy Orton defeated Brad Maddox by referee designation in a no DQ match. So that happened all 10 years ago yesterday. WWE holding its Monday Night Raw event from the Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, Tennessee. Now, getting on to today, going back 30 years ago today, back to 1993. 30 years ago today, the 5th issue of Freaks from Malibu's Ultraverse imprint went on sale on this date 30 years ago today. Sold for $1.95, was 32 pages. The story
Is that Freaks? It looks like Free X.
I think, yeah. Well, I was thinking that too, but I think it's pronounced. My guess is it's pronounced Freaks.
Okay.
But yeah, I would, but because they jammed all the one. I think if there's a hyphen in between Free and X, and it would probably be Free X. But I think because they have it all together, it probably is pronounced Freaks.
It sounds a bit freaky to me.
Yeah. But anyways, on this date, as I said, 30 years ago today, the 5th issue of Freaks from Malibu's Ultraverse imprint went on sale. Story was Up Against the Wall. It was written by Gerard Jones, penciled by Ben Herrera, inked by Lawrence Welsh, lettered by Timothy Eldred, with Robert Albord doing the coloring. And 1993 is just so nice that we're gonna hit it twice.
Well, I don't think I've heard that in a while.
I think I did something like that the other day, but
yeah.
Also on this date in 1993, 30 years ago, 30 years ago today. Was the premiere of the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure OVA. This was it was an adaptation of the series' third part, I guess. So let's see, JoJo's Bizarre. This particular JoJo's Bizarre Adventure was an original OVA adaptation of Hirohiko Araki's manga series of the same name, produced by A.P.P.P, another Pushkin Planning. Was adapted from the series' third part, Stardust Crusaders. So the OVA, the first OVA of JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, premiered on this date back in 1993. Not to be confused with the 2011 TV series, obviously. So with that, I thank everybody for being here. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Actually, before we let's go around the Tim, did you wanna give any kind of outro or say anything before we head out?
I think Tim has lost his mind and not here.
Well, he's muted himself. I guess he was doing something. All right. Well, Rick, did you want to give an outro or?
Well, I guess say go over to my channel, check out my what are called YouTube shorts. They're me coloring something.
If you want to, of course, share any links to those, feel free to do so.
Do I have any available? Let's see. Give me a second. YouTube Studios, open a new tab.
What's WWE's biggest competitor in recent years?
AEW.
So AEW is definitely its biggest competitor.
Yeah. You could argue that AEW is the modern day version of WCW.
That's what I thought too.
And Tim, did you want to share something before we end?
Is there anything else I want to share?
Like promote, whatever, let people know who you are.
Yeah, Tim Olson, creator of Melvin, sole operator right now of Velvet Comics, sending out books December 8th.
All right, so
Velvet Comics, all about that action.
All right, so special programming. All right, so and now we're going to close out here. Special programming note this week. This week I'm only broadcasting through Wednesday. No historical comic retrospect this week due to the Thanksgiving holiday. But we will be doing shows up through Wednesday in each newscast. I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow.
When was I scheduled?
You're next scheduled on December the 8th.
Oh, how ironic. Okay.
Why is that ironic?
Because that's the day he's mailing a bunch of books.
Oh, okay. Well, then you'll get a good chance to promote some stuff too. Yeah, and we'll be going over books that went on sale from Marvel Comics in January 1940. Basically, one of the other things about having this week off Friday is that it serves as a nice little break segue going from finishing up 1939 to getting into starting up in 1940 when we come back on the 1st.
The long journey to the 1950s.
RJ will be with me on the 1st. We'll be going over books that went on sale in DC in January 1940. And then when you come back on the 8th, Tim, I almost called you Melvin. I almost called you Melvin there. I had to stop myself for a moment. But yeah, Tim, we'll be going over books that went on sale from Marvel in January 1940. And then Rick, your next schedule tentatively to be with me on December 22nd. We'll probably be doing, I believe it will be Dell books that went on sale from Dell, probably
Yeah.
Super Comics and Crackerjack Funnies, and those are more anthologies. So that's what
Tim's
you guys
gonna-
are working in the coming weeks here.
Tim's really gonna have to book it that day.
Rick,
Anyways, I thank
ask
everybody for
away.
being here. I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow.
Remember, it's only a day away.